Bars versus coins, navigating the best bullion choices for savvy investors. Hi everyone and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by ainslie.com.au, the home of Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, Ainslie Wealth and the Gold and Silver Standard. Be sure to have a look. Today, welcome Bailey for his Insights debut. Now, customers will be, or certainly customers from the Brisbane store, probably some from the Melbourne as well, will be familiar with Bailey. He's been here for a long time. It's great to finally get you on Insights to talk about something that you're very passionate about, you're dealing with every day. How are you going today, Bailey?
Very good. You finally roped me in. You finally convinced me. It took, it didn't take that much. Let's be honest. It didn't take too much twisting of the arm. I love a bit to be on camera, so it's all good. You got me here now. So,
Well, we're very glad to have you here. Look, I know people have lots of questions they want to ask about bullion. You know the ins and outs. You're dealing with it every day. Sort of now you're back office in the Treasury in Brisbane. But the topic today that you picked to talk about is a really interesting one for people. Do we deal with bars or do we deal with coins? It's one we get quite a lot. Can you start us off today just explaining to people what the difference is?
yeah, I think it's a pretty common one. We do get what actually is a coin. So bullion bars, bullion itself, I should say, is just a classification, a very important classification. So bullion itself can apply to various shapes and sizes of your metal. So bullion needs to have weight, brand, and purity minted on whatever the item is, and that removes it from having GST. So when you talk about bullion coins or bullion bars, they're both bullion. So that's where I think it can get a little bit confusing for some people. The difference between what makes something a coin is the fact that it has to be legally tender and it has to be recognized by the government of that country, and it has to have a denomination of currency on that particular round or bar of any type. Whereas a bar or just a round is simply that, without the legal tender factor. That is actually all it is at the end of the day. It's actually really a simple classification, but then you get into a lot of the why. Why does it need to be a coin? Why should you buy a coin? Why should you buy a bar? And I'm sure we'll get into that today. But the difference between what makes it a coin and what makes it a bar is actually very simple. It is just the legal tender status.
So that's quite interesting. And I know people who come to the store and ask that question, they're probably looking because it's actually interesting, I think, that some people don't want the legal tender status of it, but others do. Can you dig a little bit more into that? Like, I know we've had conversations in the past around the legal tender status potentially offering some additional benefits. So how do you view it? And what have you sort of had conversations with customers around this involving? Is it that they're looking at it for those reasons or not?
Yeah, I mean, some people. I think people. The reason some people like a bar to not be legal tender or not to be a coin can be philosophical for some people.
Right.
You know, whether they have ideologies that about our lovely monarch that maybe don't align with why they're purchasing. So, but all that aside, there are a lot of reasons why you would buy a coin, and perhaps some reasons why maybe you would stay away from legal tender coins. So, I suppose if you want, I can go into first the reasons why you would buy a coin and why people do like the coins. I think for a lot of people, it's a recognizable. It gives, if you know that something is backed by your local government or a well-known government around the world, and it comes from a government mint, that for a lot of people gives them the confidence in what they're buying. Now, of course, when you do buy, you do have to make sure that there are fakes that exist. It doesn't matter that just because it's legal tender or it's got the mark on it, that it can still be fake. But from a recognizable factor, perhaps if people were selling on a secondary market or they were trading or whatever they're doing with it, that does give them the ability to just have that instant brand, or I suppose if you want to refer to a government as a brand, it has that immediate recognition. So I think from that regard, people associate money and currency and legal tender and a denominated value with value. So it just makes it a little bit easier, I suppose, to wrap your head around that if you were trading it, say, with someone who wasn't well-versed in bullion or precious metals, generally speaking. So I think that's one of the reasons people do it. Further down the line to coins is because they are often given out by government-backed mints or sort of larger organizations, you tend to get a bit more variety with the type of coins that are issued. So you can get commemorative coins, you can get all these different sort of shapes and sizes. And why that can be really appealing to people is because they're legal tender, a lot of the time, or almost exclusively, there is a limited capped mintage on those coins.
Right.
So basically what that means in layman's terms is if you want to get your, 1 ounce insert design here, there may only be 1,000 of them to get made. So while that doesn't amount to a lot of silver, 1,000 ounces, that ends up being quite a valuable coin down the line if maybe they don't actually reach that maximum mintage level. So you can attach value beyond just the value of the metal when buying a coin. So from a collectible point of view, that can be very appealing, and we do get a lot of customers who come in looking purely for that collectible factor because at Ainslie we are a primary distributor for the Perth Mint, so that's our largest government-backed mint in the country. So we do get a lot of exclusive offers through them as well too. So we do find a lot of people are coming in. You get the double whammy. You get the value of the metal, so as a savings and all of the benefits that we know about with buying bullion, you get that. But you also get the potential down the road that perhaps maybe you've got a coin that is a design that is more sought after on the private market. So at the end of the day, the value of the metal in that is exactly the same intrinsically. If you melted it down, there is absolutely no difference. But it we do see it quite a lot that customers are quite happy when they are able to get maybe one of those more rarer items that they can either add to their collection or maybe trade not with us down the line. We'd prefer it they give it back to us, but they do have that benefit, and that is why a lot of people do that.
I want to dig. I know you were also going to talk about some of the negatives of that, but I just want to dig a little bit more on your specific insight here, because you see this day in, day out, what customers are actually sort of buying. What is it? Something about the lunar ones that people really are attracted to? What's your insight there? Do you find that people generally buy more of the Australian-based ones? Are they looking for foreign government coins? I know you sort of sell the US eagles and that sort of thing as well. What's the breakdown? I think that would be really interesting for people.
Yeah, well, the breakdown's a hard one to sort of just it's quite a balance, I would say. I think a lot of people do when they come in, they do tend to buy. If you look on average across our offerings, the cheaper the coin, the more we sell it, I think, because at the end of the day, people do want to just get the best value for their money. But as I said, you do get that bang for your buck with it being a legal tender coin, but also getting the bullion. So I think people do gravitate towards the lower premium coins, so they get the best return on investment for that particular item. But in my experience personally, I find a lot of people do get the lunar coins. I think a lot of that comes down to it is very recognizable from the Perth Mint. They've done 3 series of them now. So they've done 3 full iterations of the lunar cycles. Now, for those who are watching who don't know what I'm talking about, the Chinese lunar New Year every year is a new animal on the Chinese zodiac calendar. So every year, the Perth Mint will issue a range from gold in all different fractional sizes, and same with silver all the way through. And it's actually quite a sought after thing every year. And they often, depending on the animal and the cultural significance of that animal, they can sell out quite quickly. So I do find that from an Ainslie perspective via Perth Mint, the lunars are what we tend to move the most of from a collectible point of view. Right. From the foreign coins, we do have a range from around the world. So we do have the South African Krugerrand, the English Britannia, Canadian Maple, Austrian Philharmonic. So we do cover a wide range of foreign coins. A lot of people do like to add those to their collection, but they do the exact same design for those items every single year. So while it is a coin and they do update the year, because if it is legal tender and it's a legal tender coin, it has to have the year denominated on it. They don't tend to update the design. So we don't tend to find that we get many of the collectors buying those beyond them just maybe wanting something a little bit different in their stack. So I suppose that's kind of gives a bit of a broad overview of what we tend to move. But I suppose with the coins, given the nature of it, it's really hard to pin down what. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder when it comes to collectability. There are quite objective measures. Coins with lower mintages are sought after more, but beyond that, when you've got such a wide range of designs with such a wide range of customers, you really can't pinpoint down which is the best for that particular person. So we do have a lot for everyone, and we do have a lot of customers who do come in and maybe think they're going to come in and buy a bar, but they do just get lured in by that nice shiny design on the coin. So we do say
They
that a lot
fall
as
in
well
love
too.
when
So
they see it.
they fall in love when they see that cute little pig on the coin. They fall in love with it, and that's what they leave with. So we do see that actually quite a lot. So
That's really interesting. And when you were talking then about the other sort of countries not really doing a variety of designs, it's just the same design every year, might be a bit of an area where Australia via the Perth Mint is a little bit different there.
yeah, I suppose, and I should be careful when I say that. A lot of the mints they will do various collectible designs. It's just
Right.
you'll find that a lot of dealers don't tend to get that in unless there's sort of more maybe a smaller operation, and that's sort of the brand that they're leaning into, trying to get more
Yeah, right.
collectible cool stuff to get more clicks. But you find with that to get it over, to get an allocation, to lock it in, to fly that stuff over, it sometimes it can be commercially unviable sometimes if you're only getting, say, 30 of them if they have
Yeah,
such a limited mintage. And then, of course, the premium that we would have to sort of charge on that makes it, no, it's just no one's going to like that. Put it that way. So
yeah.
you stay away from that. So they do have quite an offering, but when you do start getting into those international coins, there is a logistical there are logistical issues at play getting some of that stuff over. So they do have the variety, but given obviously we're very lucky that we have the Perth Mint in Australia and we have such a good relationship with them, most of the variety and the designs that we have at Ainslie come via the Perth Mint. So we definitely lean heavily on that, and we thank them very much for all of the allocations they give us. So
Look, people are going to love this. They're going to love sort of getting a bit of inside information here of how it all works, particularly people who are new to the space and don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. You mentioned before about the cons, though. What's the negative here of the coins? You said some
yeah,
people might not want the coins because of sort of philosophical reasons, but are there other reasons that come to mind? I mean, I know personally, you can have coins in your self-managed super fund as an example, but that can create problems as well if the coin is collectible, as you mentioned, versus, so we generally tell people for super, just try and avoid coins, although you can technically have them in. What's your view on the cons?
yeah, and again, cons and pros are both in the eye of the beholder. There's no right or wrong. It just depends on what each individual investor is going for when they're purchasing metals or coins. So I think bullion and coins and precious metals in the way that sort of, I suppose, people approach it from a retail point of view is quite unique in that regard to a lot of other maybe financial markets. You're buying gold, you're buying silver. So I just want to be careful on the cons and saying that it's a bad thing and you should do one thing or not do another thing. But I think you've touched on probably one that I don't think a lot of people know about, is that depending on your accountant, now, we're not financial advisors, not accountants, but depending on your accountant, they may have some issues with you storing coins at home in a super fund. You obviously have to speak to them about that, but by some definitions, they are considered collectibles and get treated the same as artwork in your super fund, which obviously we would probably argue is a bit silly, but we're obviously not going to argue with each individual person's advice that they get from their individual accountant. So you may run into issues there from a super fund or purchasing point of view in that regard. But if you just scale back that to the literal coin and that part of it, I sort of touched on it before. The first one you're going to find is that on average, not always, but on average, those coins are going to carry a higher premium. So that's probably the biggest, because obviously at the end of the day, whether you're buying it for collectible or whether you're buying it just for investment, everyone wants the best price and everyone wants the closest to spot price. So if you every cent and every percent that you add on above spot price is an extra percent or cent that the spot price has to go up for you to even break even on that if you're dealing with a bullion dealer. Now, as we said, there are some situations where you get that limited mintage and that extra cost is offset, maybe just because the value of the coin itself and the design has gone up. But it's important to note that most, if not all, of the reputable dealers, they will buy back anything for spot or below spot in most regards. So it doesn't matter how nice the coin is on the way out or how yucky the bar is on the way back in. You get the same for it when it comes back in. So you do have to realize that if you're dealing with some of those really, really, really nice coins and there is an extra cost with transporting those because they're transported more securely, the design work that goes into that all trickles down. So the biggest one is the cost because obviously we all want to make money. That's why we're buying bullion, or we want to conserve money. So If you think of it through a collector lens for some of those high premium coins, and you're not necessarily buying it for the silver itself, and you are buying it because you get the best of both worlds, then that's fine. But if you are looking to, say, just buy bulk metal to be exposed to silver or gold or platinum, then you might stay away from that. So that's why I sort of preface that there's no right or wrong. It's only right or wrong depending on how you're deciding to approach it when you come in to purchase. And of course, in store, the customer service representatives will go over all of that for each individual person that comes in. But I think those are the two things that are I suppose the biggest considerations with a coin is it does come with a cost, and there are some certain legalities around storage if you're buying in super funds and so forth. So
yeah, that's all very interesting. Look, this has been a fantastic conversation. Just to wrap it up, do you think you've said that really it's in the eye of the beholder and it depends on what they're doing, but for the different investor types, do you want to just summarize what you've said so far? So if you're coming in and you're buying purely for investment, is it that bars are the way to go for most people? If you're buying because you want that sort of combination, you look at coins, or if you're wanting the protection, maybe the certainty around the government aspect. To wrap it up, what is your summary here of advice for people who are coming in, fully understanding what you said, that there are no two people the same. It's all, everyone's different.
Well, look, to put it very bluntly, if you are coming in to buy bullion and you want the closest to spot price, and it is a savings or an investment method first and foremost, without any other sort of variables included in that, you would not buy a coin. You would buy the biggest, cheapest, ugliest bar that you can, and you would take that away and you would store that. If you were a collector and you just really like that as a hobby, and you still get exposed to the price of silver and gold, which both have gone up a lot in how I've covered any premium in the last several weeks that you would have paid, then that's what you can do, and you can have that offering. I would say that for me, and I think most people would probably skew heavily towards, if you're being exposed to bullion, you would buy, maybe just pulling a number off the top of my head, 80% of your 80 to 90% would be in bullion bars and not coins. And then, you have a little bit of fun with your investment, and then you'd have some collectible coins here and there. So that's how I would approach it. And that's how I think most people do it. You're either a collector or you're someone who doesn't care about that. But I think a lot of people do. If they come in and they think they're going to be someone who's just purely investment, they often leave with a few coins. And I think a lot of people who collect and buy a lot of coins end up seeing over time the premium on that, and then they might buy a few bars. So I think a lot of the time people do end up a little bit in the middle, and I think a lot of people do try and balance that out. And me, myself, I'm a bar first person. I don't want to pay premiums, but I end up with a few coins and I know all the ins and outs. So every person falls for it. So I shouldn't know, every person, they, as we said before, they come in and they see that cute little dog on the coin, and that cute little dog on the coin goes home with them. So as I said, to summarize it, there's no right or wrong. If you're a person who wants to buy the dog coin for a gift, for all that, you still get the bullion. You're still getting the metal. You're still exposed to the market. As I mentioned, we've seen the market rocket over the last few weeks beyond any premium. So it wouldn't matter what you got a few weeks ago. You would be well and truly in the clear. So I think as I said, the summary is there's no right or wrong. You just have to be you have to know what your intentions are and why you're buying what you're buying. So that way you come to your own personal correct conclusion, I think.
Look, absolutely fantastic, and really honest there to sort of say it does matter based on what you want, right? Like, that's really important. It's not a one size fits all answer. I know myself personally, I am the same. I can't help avoid, particularly when you see a new coin come out that every year just sells out. I can't help myself. I have to get some of them in there. But I take your point, though. Also, you pay that little bit of a premium, but at the same time, you have something beautiful that's sitting as part of your collection. So I definitely subscribe to your view there that I have a little bit of both. But look, absolutely such valuable insight. I know people really enjoy this and appreciate you coming on to talk to us about this. So thank you so much for spending the time with us today, and we look forward to doing that again. So thank you, Bailey.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you
to many
for
more.
watching. We'll chat again soon.